As a Gen Z, I had grown up hearing about the JP movement from my elders. I had also remembered watching the Anna Hazare's anti-corruption movement and the nationwide protest after the Nirbhaya rape case on television when I was a teenager. Those movements appeared to be driven by a clear sense of purpose and public emotion. With that background in mind, I decided to visit Jantar Mantar to see the ongoing protest organized by the Cockroach Janata Party. The protest was initially presented as a movement against the NEET paper leak and a demand for accountability from the authorities. However, what I witnessed on the ground raised serious questions about whether it remained a students' protest or had evolved into a much broader political spectacle. On July 20 and 21, I visited Jantar Mantar to observe the ongoing protest by the CJP, which was initially presented as a movement against irregularities in the NEET examination and a demand for the accountability from the National Testing Agency, that is NTA, and the Union Education Ministry. As someone who expected to see disciplined students' agitation focus on examination reforms, transparency, and justice for the affected aspirants, what I witnessed at the site was very different from the expectations. The first thing that struck me was the atmosphere. Jantar Mantar is traditionally known as a designated protest site where citizens gather to raise serious public issues. However, it is no longer appeared to function like a focused protest venue. Instead, it resembled a picnic spot where young people, mostly in the range of 15 to 30 age group, had gathered to eat, socialize and enjoy themselves. Many of the youngsters present there did not appear to be NEET aspirants or even students. Instead, they seemed to have come there for fun, to create content, shoot reels and somehow become viral on social media. In the pursuit of online fame, some were indulging in behavior that was inappropriate and completely unrelated to the purpose of the protest. Groups of the young people were sitting together, laughing, talking, recording videos, taking selfies and creating social media content. Loud music was also being played at different points and some groups were dancing in inappropriately manner and chanting slogans in a manner that seemed more aimed at maintaining crowd energy than discussing the future of the Indian students. The atmosphere looked more like a food festival and jamming session than a movement. One could not ignore the large-scale distribution of food there. Packed meals including snacks like burgers and pizzas and other food items were being brought to the site in large quantities and were distributed. This raised a serious and obvious question in my mind. A protest that begins with the symbolism of a hunger strike carries a moral message of sacrifice. But here, the dominant visual are food distribution, feasting and jamming. I also met a young boy and a girl who told me that they had found their life support at the protest site and had been together for the last 18 hours. At that moment, one could not help but wonder, is this really the Gen Z that is supposed to shape the future of this country? There were undoubtedly students who were genuinely angry about the examination related issues. However, a large section of the crowd did not appear to be engaged in any serious discussion about how to reform the examination system or prevent any future paper leaks. Another striking aspect was the language being used at several points of the protest. I heard abusive slogans and remarks that had nothing to do with the NEET or the education reforms. The tone in some areas were aggressive and confrontational, and the level of indecency in certain slogans was such that many citizens would hesitate even to repeat them. I also observed that some individuals were openly using vapes, e-cigarettes and tobacco products at the protest site. This shows the nature of the gathering and their intent. One of the most disturbing aspects was the treatment of journalists. According to multiple accounts from the ground, and my observation also, some male reporters were assaulted, while female reporters were heckled. When participants were unable to answer the questions, they responded by shouting "Godi media" and surrounding journalists in large groups, creating a hostile environment. The atmosphere became increasingly chaotic, with Azadi slogans echoing through the protest site and highly abusive, obscene language, including vulgar abuses directed at mothers and sisters, being shouted openly by a section of crowd. The situation became even more serious when clashes broke out between some protesters and police. Stones were pelted at police and their vehicles were vandalized, resulting in injuries to more than 50 police personnel. As I moved around the venue, I noticed the visible presence of political and ideological organizations. Videos from the protest site showed the presence of members of ISA, the student organization associated with CPI-ML, and SFI, the student wing of CPI-M. The presence of political leaders further reinforced the perception that the movement had expanded beyond students' concern. Leaders from the different political parties, including Arvind Kejriwal, D. Raja, Brinda Karat, and Aga Syed Rahula Mehdi, and many others visited the site. Speeches and statements from platform touched upon issues like Article 370 and statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. Whatever one's views on those issues, they are clearly unrelated to immediate concerns of NEET aspirants. The site shows participants raising a range of political and religious slogans that were not directly connected to NEET issue. Some clips allegedly include chants like बस नाम रहेगा अल्लाह का. Comedian Kunal Kamra, who has previously involved in controversies over remarks criticized Hindu group. He called सीता के पति का नाम लेकर नीता के पति का काम कर रही है ये सरकार. Photographs and posters of Che Guevara were also visible at the protest site. Che Guevara was a controversial revolutionary figure associated with political repression and execution in post-revolutionary in Cuba. A girl was saying Muslims are 1,000 times better than Hindus, and that it was better to have Muslim friends rather than Hindu friends. Such videos and evidence that we have gathered are beyond the students' concern. Apart from examination-related issues, some participants raised demands concerning to women reservation, gender rights, LGBTQ-related issues. Slogans such as "Mera ling, meri marzi, mera gender, meri marzi," "Mere kapde, meri marzi" were heard. One of the most unusual sights was the presence of Nihang Sikhs carrying swords and performing martial displays near police personals. For an ordinary citizen visiting a protest site, this was supposed to be about a student's future. Such scenes were difficult to reconcile with the stated purpose of the gathering. At one point, a person present at the protest told me that efforts were being made to mobilize students from the university campus and bring more people to the site. According to him, many students were not actually interested in participating in this protest, but organizers were trying to increase crowd numbers and were forcing them to come. The larger question that emerged from my visit was simple. Is this a students' protest? Are the real issues being addressed at the protest site? A genuine students' movement usually has certain identifiable features: clear demands, a defined leadership structure, a roadmap, discipline among participants, and a sustained focus on the issue at hand. At Jantar Mantar, I found none of these. The original issue had been increasingly overshadowed by the political mobilization, unrelated demands, social media algorithm, entertainment, and social media performances. What I saw at the Cockroach Janata Party's Jantar Mantar protest was not the focused students' agitation I had expected. The atmosphere of the food distribution, reel making, loud sloganeering, vulgar language, and political activity raised a larger question which we should think.